Before you listen to this BBC podcast, I'd like to tell you about something else you might enjoy. My name's Alison Hindle, and I commission audio drama and fiction for the BBC. It's a great privilege, because I get to unearth stories people love. You should see the books and scripts covering my floor, from new talent and established writers as well as classics. The BBC has such a rich history of making great audio drama. We're still the largest producer in the world, and the popularity of podcasts means we can share what we do with even more people. So if you like to lose yourself in a gripping audio drama or book, find your next listen on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Alasdair Lamont, and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, here with the final words on another action-packed weekend in the national game.
Forrest on the rebound, pulls it back, and Celtic score! Nicholas Kuhn slides it in! The best possible start for the champions!
As dominant Celtic heap more misery on Hibs in the Sunday sunshine, is David Gray feeling the heat at Easter Road. Also,
on to Shinichi, it's a great ball and chance, goal! And Aberdeen will take all 3 points.
It looks like bye-bye Bojan, but is even that enough to dampen the mood at Aberdeen after another win for Jimmy Tilline's impressive Dons? And
right throat, the flick on. Sidibe gets there. Adama Sidibe strikes first for St Johnstone.
Who had St Johnstone to win 3-0 at Rugby Park?
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, as we record, it's the evening of Sunday the 11th of August. I'm joined for this edition of the podcast by the Motherwell defender, Stephen O'Donnell. How are you, Stephen?
I'm good, Alistair. Yourself?
Good, yeah. I hope you've been enjoying some sunshine as you recover from yesterday's exertions. What about you, Marvin? How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
Good show. Marvin Bartley, former Hibs and Livingston midfielder, joining us for this one. Lots to discuss. I just want to get a quick thought from both of you before we really plough into it. Highlight of the Scottish football weekend. Stephen, I'll start with you.
I'd probably say the strike from Callum McGregor.
McGregor! What a goal that is! 25 yards out, the Celtic skipper has scorched that one past Bursick. It is outstanding from the skipper. One of the best goals he's scored in his illustrious career. On the week he's retired from international football. That's a reminder what Scotland will be missing.
Obviously, he's quite a probably emotional week retiring from international football, and to top off that week with such a clean strike kind of typifies Callum McGregor.
Yeah, we'll definitely speak more about Callum McGregor later on. Marvin, what about you?
I'm going to go with Miovski leaving Aberdeen. I know it's a strange one, but I think his contribution to Scottish football has been really superb. I think the way he's handled himself as well, with all the speculation going on. And I thought, the Aberdeen gave him a fitting send-off today. Every single fan in the stadium on their feet, and obviously you saw the emotion from him. So not often do you lose your best player, and it's done in such a nice way. So for me, that's the highlight of the week.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Marvin. I guess we'll touch on Miovski again later on in the podcast. Well, there's lots to discuss with the guys, but before we move on, let's quickly run through the latest Scottish football headlines. Celtic are top of the Premiership after a comfortable 2-0 win over Hibs at Easter Road. Their victory came after rivals Rangers beat Motherwell 2-1 at Hampden on Saturday. In what looked like Bojan Miovski's last game for the club, Aberdeen maintained their 100% record this season with a 3-1 home win over St Mirren, while St Johnstone battered Kilmarnock 3-0 at Rugby Park. In the weekend's other fixtures, a 95th minute Ronan Hale strike earned Ross County a 1-1 draw with Dundee United and Dingwall, and Dundee beat Hearts 3-1 at Dens. And there were goals galore in the opening weekend of the SWPL. Rangers annihilated Aberdeen 11-0, Celtic destroyed Dundee United 9-0, Hearts hammered Queen's Park 11-1, and Glasgow City mauled Montrose 7-0, an astonishing 39 goals across 4 matches. Right, let's start at Easter Road. As I mentioned, a 2-0 victory for Celtic. Stephen, sounded like it was, it was 2-0 going on probably 3 or 4.
Yeah, no, I think even looking at the stats, I think it was over 75% possession. Surprised, because I know Hibs have made a lot of signings. Normally like to have a wee bit of the ball themselves, so surprised with that. But look, Celtic are a top side. You see the midfield three, I think, with Hatate, O'Reilly and McGregor. Like, that's a very, very good three. And I think it'll be one that, if they keep them fit, will or keep them in the building, I suppose, will be one that will probably see them win the league again.
It looks quite ominous, Marvin, for the rest of the league, doesn't it? The manner in which Celtic have hit the ground running at the start of this season.
Yeah, exactly that. You saw in the first game, they started extremely quickly, and it was the same again at Easter Road, really. The first half did what they needed to do, and they kind of came off the gas in the second half. Well, not kind of, they did come off the gas in the second half, but, Celtic are hitting those heights at the 90 minutes of the first game and the first 45 minutes against Hibs, and they'd be a real difficult team to beat. And as you said at the start, it was 2-0, but they hit the posts. I think they hit the crossbar as well. They were in full control of the game. So, yeah, it's going to take someone really, really good to stop Celtic if they're in that sort of mood.
I know we often say that, teams will not be judged and their season won't be defined by games, particularly against Celtic. But what can we read into the result and performance from a Hibs perspective, Stephen?
Look, I think it's too soon. I think last week would have probably been a bit more disappointing against St Mirren. But look, Celtic are a good side. They're going to do that to a lot of teams. I think it's important, obviously, with the new manager getting at the end of the season, and you give him time to kind of implement his ideas whenever it's kind of the pressure games. And over the next coming weeks, it'll be a more important time for the Hibs players and management.
They do have Celtic again in the League Cup, unfortunately for them, next week, Marv. You know what it's like at Easter Road, how demanding the fans are. I mean, clearly David Gray has a lot of credit in the bank with the Hibs fans, but it's not the start of the season that he wanted, and it does invite a bit of pressure on him, doesn't it?
It does, and football, that's just the way it is now, in management especially. But like you said, being at such a big club like Hibs, Stephen said about it there, losing to St Mirren last week, the defeat against Celtic Hearts in the League Cup as well. So I think that's like 3 defeats in 4 games. But he does need time. There's a lot of players that have been brought into the building. He needs them all to gel. But like you said, they've got Celtic away next Sunday. And that's a massive, massive game for them, because what they need is a repeat of the second half from a Hibs point of view. Because if Celtic play the way they did in the first half and Hibs do the same, I don't think they'll be as lucky as to get, in at half-time with a 2-0 deficit. So, yeah. Listen, David will be feeling the pressure every single day in management. You can win 5 games and then lose one, and all of a sudden, somebody's got something to say. So it's part and parcel of it. He'll be ready for it. And, it's something that over time you'll learn from these experiences. And
before we move on from that game, you mentioned it at the top, Stephen, a brilliant strike from Callum McGregor. I've kind of said in recent times that he doesn't get enough goals for me of late. Earlier in his career, he did, But I suppose the main thing for Callum McGregor, apart from that goal this week, has, of course, been his Scotland retirement. I mean, you played with him a number of times, of course, for the national side, Stephen. What do you make of his decision, and what will his legacy in a Scotland shirt be?
Look, I think as a fan, I'm disappointed that he's retired. He's a top player. I think for the caps he's had, the consistency he shows over his full career, to be honest. But the composure he has, the wanting the ball, and being key in Steve Clarke's team. I think it's a team that's reached 2 European group stages, which is the first time. That's 2 Euros, the first time it's happened in 20 odd years. And he's a main part of that, an integral part. So it'll be a big miss for Scotland. But look, Callum, playing with him, he was just ever present. He was always there in training. You never seen him moaning. I know he had injury last season, sorry, against Celtic, but other than that, I can't think of many times he was missing. You see lots of players have injuries. He plays over 50 games for the past probably 10 years. And just shows you how well he looks after his body. And he must maybe think it's time to have a couple of weekends off. But I'd like to have seen him play a couple more years. Maybe try and get to the World Cup group stages would be an incredible achievement if we manage it. But look, he's also made a decision that he feels right for himself and the club.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it'd be difficult to grudge Callum McGregor a couple of weekends off, as you say. Also on Sunday, Aberdeen beat St Mirren 3-1 at Pittodrie. I was commentating on that one for the TV highlights. Jimmy Tellene was the first Aberdeen manager to win his first 5 games in charge. He's now made that 6. Marvin, how impressed have you been by the start he's made to life with the Dons? Because it goes back to what we were saying about Hibs, doesn't it? It's a pressure cooker place to go into, and a number of managers have come unstuck in recent times.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with the start he's made. You're talking about the 6 wins in a row, but a couple of times at half-time they've actually been booed off the pitch. and he's just dealt with it. He's spoken about it after and said to his players, keep believing in what we're doing. We'll break the opposition down, and he's been true to his word. And it's a fantastic result for them to get a 3-1 win today as well. So, as you said, it's a never pressure job. Aberdeen obviously finishing in the bottom 6 last season wasn't acceptable. The players knew that, the fans knew that. But as a new manager coming in, to hit the ground running, there's nothing better. So, listen, they're looking extremely strong at this moment in time. But he said in his post-match, it's one game at a time. I know it's an age-old thing that every manager says, but, they've done really, really well. And now they've lost their talisman in terms of, Miovski leaving the football club. They'll have a little bit of money to spend. So it'd be interesting to see what market he goes and shops in now.
Yeah, Stephen, just as Marvin mentions, Miovski, we may as well develop that. It did look like he was saying farewell at the end. It looks like he's heading for Girona. It's not quite done and dusted as such. But, how do they go about replacing a player of that quality and the goals that he brings?
I think what's difficult is finding the goals we found with Theo Breer, but they bring more than just goals to the team. Miovski's movement, stretching the team, coming to short, he can link the play. Just very much an all-round striker, and losing that on top of the goals is kind of extra salt in the wounds. But the positive is they're getting a good bit of money for him, if it's believed to be true. And again, it's so important that the manager's given that to go and kind of strengthen. It's the same at Motherwell. They need to be given the money. You can't just keep taking, because it becomes difficult to kind of feel that the same strength team. So no, look, Miovski will be a big miss for Aberdeen, but for Aberdeen's sake, I hope they get the money to spend.
And I just want to ask you also about, there's definitely a feel-good factor at Aberdeen at the moment because of the start to the season they've made. There's a togetherness, the fans are buying into it. And I just wonder, there's similarities to me, the kind of similar atmosphere maybe you had at Kilmarnock under Steve Clarke, when momentum's a massive thing, isn't it? And if you get on a good run, it can just keep going.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think what's important is when you get the positive results, it makes it a lot easier to trust everybody. I'm sure Marvin will see that when he was a manager, when he played. A couple of good results, boys are coming into training with a smile on their face. You maybe put on a bad session, it's forgiven. Whereas when you're on bad runs, these things can kind of snowball and become bigger issues than they really are. So it's a really good start for them. Playing in the League Cup, it's not easy being the favourites. Aberdeen were obviously going to be a cup final for all the teams. And to go and win all of them, it's not easy, and it shows you how organised he is for a start, and that he certainly seems to be building a belief within the dressing room.
I guess the shock of the weekend in the top flight at least was St Johnstone winning 3-0 away at Kilmarnock. Marvin, I don't imagine many people would have seen that one coming.
No, I thought it was going to be an extremely difficult game for St Johnstone, if I'm honest. It's never easy going to Kilmarnock. I know they'd played on Thursday night, but I thought it'd be a tough fixture for them. But as you said, they kind of blew them away. The red card obviously helped St Johnstone, didn't help Kilmarnock at all.
Oh, that's a wild challenge. There's a scream, and the referee quick to the pocket. A second yellow card for Joe Wright, and Kilmarnock are reduced to 10 players. It was a wild challenge. And Kilmarnock already a goal down, are now a man down.
You still have to win those games of football, and they did that with flying colours. Obviously, I think it's the first time they scored 3 goals in a number of years as well. With Sidibe getting 2 is massive for them because he has looked lively.
Here's Raymond. Brilliant work. Drives it over. Sidibe with the space! And Sidibe with a second. St Johnstone celebrate again.
And they haven't sent a forward get any other goal as well. So, yeah, a massive, massive result for them. Craig Levein will be absolutely delighted. It took him a long time to get started last season, but to get 3 points in your second game away to Kilmarnock, that's no small feat.
Marv mentions the couple of goals that Sidibe got. Stephen, I guess you'll have already played against them last season. And you mentioned Theo Breer. These guys, if they can get on a scoring streak, are worth their weight in gold. Could he go on to develop as Theo did last season, do you think?
Yeah, no, 100%. He was a handful last season when we played against him. Looked very mobile. I think he scored against his last game of the season as well. But it's, again, these guys, if they score goals, they get people come and take them. That's what I suppose the SPFL can offer. Players coming in, we want to try and tell them, players coming in Motherwell, if you perform well, you can go on to bigger things. And I think that's something he'll be probably looking to. But if St Johnstone keep him even if it's to Christmas, beyond that can be the difference to them staying in the league or finishing top 6, however their season's going. So strikers are so crucial, and it's important if you've got a good one that you try and keep a hold of them.
It is difficult, Marvin, I know St Mirren were only beaten for the first time today, but when clubs of that size and of that squad size have got European football to contend with, it's clearly difficult for Kilmarnock and St Mirren to juggle both, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so difficult. You're talking about squad size, but you're also talking about recovery of players as well, because you'd be lying if you said, you didn't have one eye on Thursday, because, every player wants to play in Europe. It's such a great opportunity, and Scotland with, this season that's just gone, having 5 teams, having the chance of doing so. So, yeah, it's hard juggling it. You saw Derek McInnes trying to, freshen things up, and Steve Wilson's trying to do exactly the same. But, if you don't have a big enough squad, if you do it every single year, it's a bit different because you get a bigger budget. For example, you can have 24 pros rather than 20, etc. So, yeah, it's so difficult to juggle. But, St Mirren obviously beat Hibs in the first game, which I had Hibs a favourite for just because St Mirren played on a Thursday. But yeah, listen, they'll be disappointed with today's result, but then they've got a massive game coming up midweek.
I think what you see is that the margins are so small between SPFL teams, other than really Celtic and Rangers, that when it is week to week, and even sometimes you see a difference with them, if they've got a hard game during the week, they can maybe a wee bit off it. The percentages are a big player in football, and then if you've got maybe 1 or 2 players not quite 100% that are key for your team, it can be a difficult afternoon.
Let's reflect a little bit on Saturday's action, and Stephen, will stick with you because obviously you played the full 90 minutes at Hampden as Rangers overcame your Motherwell side by 2-1. From what I saw of the game and certainly heard, Rangers started well, but Motherwell, it sounded like, could have grabbed a point in the second half. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, I definitely think we could have grabbed a point. I think if you look over the whole as a game, Rangers were the better side, but whenever you're 2-1 with 30 minutes to go, we started kind of throwing everything at it and created a few opportunities. We could easily came away with a point in the end, and it was an alright. It was going to be tough. Rangers are a good side, but the signings they'd made, you seen the Czerny, he was described to me as Iron Robin, and that's certainly how he looked.
Sorry, Czerny's at the edge of the box, shoots it. That's a wonderful goal! What a goal that is from the unknown Wolfsburg player. He picked up, drove to the edge of the area, right hand side of the D, and he's bent it with the left peg into the far corner of the net past Oxborough. Rangers back in front.
I was quite grateful I was on the right hand side, but obviously a really good left foot, so a good addition to the league. But they're a good side. I know they come any criticism, but we performed well. We made it difficult for them, and hopefully we can do more of the same. If we perform like that next weekend, I'm sure we'll be possibly getting a good result.
Stephen, was it different performing at Hampden?
Yeah, no, look, I think the atmosphere maybe wasn't as intense as it can be. Ibrox, you've got the fans right top in, and it's always going to be something levelled at the National Stadium, but it was still really good. A couple of the boys that hadn't played before against Rangers, they were saying, what an atmosphere. Did they play that song every game at the start? And I was like, I know they do. Gets a bit ominous, but no, it was so it was still a good atmosphere. And Hampden's an amazing stadium. When it's full, it's a nice place to play football. So with regards to Rangers, it's a nice big pitch. No real excuses, to be honest.
Just on a Motherwell note, Stephen, I know you looked like you picked up another couple of injuries, which, I mean, the injury list seems to be never ending for you guys. But a couple of home games coming up next. Killie in the League Cup last 16, and Hearts in the league. Of course, you'll want to get a couple of victories under your belt. Do you think things are do they still feel positive to you at the moment?
Like, I think that they're still positive because it's early in the season and the manager's very settled in how he wants to play. Players know whether it's a 2 up front or 1 up front, what's expected of them. And when the message is the same, it makes it a lot easier to kind of keep positive despite these, we'll call them setbacks, but I think setbacks is 1, 2 or 3. 7, 8, 9, I'm not too sure if that's the setback at that point. That's a squad. So no, look, it's quite frustrating, but what it does is it gives people opportunities. Sometimes you can be left out, not be seen as good enough, and you get an opportunity to come and play, and you need to try and grab it. I think that's got to be the message. It's got to be the message to the players that maybe didn't expect to be playing, and hopefully they can. And I'm sure there's enough quality in the team to hopefully get a couple of good results.
Marv, you were up at Dens on Saturday, weren't you? Again, I did that game for the TV, and it was a tough one to call, I thought, pre-match, but Dundee were terrific, especially in the first half. Tony Docherty just continues to impress, doesn't he?
Yeah, I actually had Hearts being the favourites, if I'm honest, going into the game. Especially the way they performed against Rangers. And the way Dundee played the first half against Dundee United, I thought Hearts would have gone there and won the game. We saw a switch in formation. Hearts went to a back three, and Dundee actually went to a four and played 4-3-3. And it was one of the players they brought in, Scott Tiffany, who played on the left-hand side, was a constant threat. I think they put him in because I played with Scott at Livingston, and he's got tremendous pace. I just think they wanted to pin back Taylor, and they thought he was going to play it right back. He didn't. He played it right wing back, but Scott Tiffany was fantastic. Scored the first goal.
McCowan now for Tiffany, left side of the box. Scott Tiffany cuts in. Great effort, great goal. Scott Tiffany fires Dundee ahead against Hearts. Xander Clark beats.
Then he got the penalty as well. And yeah, listen, Tony Dock's been absolutely brilliant for Dundee. First and foremost, they came up and they finished in the top six. And they don't look like they've really looked back. The players he's brought in look extremely good. The squad, a lot of pace at the top end, bringing in Simon Murray as well. But I was extremely impressed with them. And, for me, Hearts will be third. They'll be third, no doubt about it, with the squad they have and the quality they do have. But for Dundee to do that against them, they might not be far behind.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? You mentioned that, this change of system, because for me, in the opening game against Rangers, Taylor and Penrice were two of their best players playing as fullbacks. And yet Stephen A. Smith decided to change that. It definitely didn't work, and neither of those players were remotely as effective, were they?
Yeah, no, they weren't nearly as effective. And I do think it was because of the way that Dundee United dominated against Dundee in the first half, with both teams playing the back three. I just think Stephen saw that and thought, about being disrespectful to Dundee United, he's got better players. So,
right.
If they can perform in that kind of that same ilk, and they can go on and win the game. But it's almost like they were playing cat and mouse with each other, and then Tony Dock changed his to a back four. So when the teams came out, it's too late by that point. And Stephen made the change at half time. He went back to a back four. He brought Ander on. I was actually surprised he didn't play. I know Stephen said that he'd missed some training earlier on in the week, and they looked so much better in the four, so much more comfortable. And they got the first goal back, and then Oda misses a header from 5 or 6 yards out, which if they score that, I do think they'd have gone on and drawn the game. But listen, Dundee thoroughly deserved it. With that first half performance, they deserved the win.
Yeah, well, it's been another terrific weekend in the Scottish Premiership. My thanks to Stephen O'Donnell and Marvin Bartley for joining us for this podcast. Thank you for listening. Remember, we'll be here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast bright and early every weekday morning. So make sure you don't miss out. Just follow or subscribe wherever you listen. Bye for now.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.